You're listening to Cain, Randy, and Brooke on Scratch the Vinyl.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Scratch the Vinyl. You made it back for another week, and we're glad that you did. And I think you're going to be glad also because we're back at it. We're doing the 100 best protest songs. We've gotten such an overwhelming response after having Max Antoine on to do the Super Bowl protest that Kendrick Lamar did. People loved it. We're getting a lot of comments, a lot of people who are really loving this stuff. And so I would say definitely soon, everybody, we're going to be having in the near future, probably some other guests on as well to kind of give their perspective to talk about everything. But my guest right now really isn't a guest, but more of a my better half on the show right now. He's the chill man himself. He is the Godzilla of karaoke. He's the entertainment guy when it comes to Lincoln. Mr. Chill, Randy Wilson, how are you doing?
Great to see you today, Mr. Cain Stevens, my co-host and partner in crime. Yeah, I tell you what, I've been getting a lot of response from everybody about our halftime episode of the Super Bowl with Max Antoine, one of our favorite guys. But, you know, look, we started doing this countdown, the Rolling Stones top 100 protest songs. And here we are with part 3, counted down. And, man, this has been a blast as far as I'm concerned. Gives us a lot of insight to a few songs that we haven't heard in a long time and maybe get a little background of some stuff we haven't heard before. So let's kick this off with number 80, Johnny Cash, The Man in Black. The Ballad of Ira Hayes.
Oh yeah, 1964. A lot of civil rights things, and it's the 60s. The 60s were a wild time where there's a lot of protests going on, and I mean, this is nothing different. If you're a real Johnny Cash fan, you know that he's always been a guy who protested, who stood up for what he believed in, and he just happened to do an entire album of it, and this song was smack dab in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, this song was true to form and totally Johnny Cash style. I mean, if you're just a Johnny Cash fan, this is a great song. And there's a lot of background on this song. I mean, just to do a little background on Ira Hayes. I mean, he was a Native American who was one of the 7 Marines that hoisted the flag in that infamous picture from Iwo Jima.
When diving into it more, I read that Johnny Cash was under the assumption, at least, that he was believed to be part Cherokee. And so it really resonated with him to take on a Native American cause such as this and to lift up somebody like Ira Hayes, who does, you know what I mean, who stood behind America when America didn't stand behind him.
Well, there's a lot to this. And of course, I mean, so Ira Hayes died at the age of 32, basically from alcoholism. And it was really from the first understanding of what PTSD is all about. I mean, he was suffering from, you know, that post-traumatic stuff from being in the war. Because, man, he fought in several campaigns over in the, Pacific. So, I mean, it's a sad story about a guy that was decorated and hailed for part of that World War II effort and ultimately died tragically.
Well, and this is like one of those songs a lot of people don't understand is that Johnny Cash was an amazing musician. He didn't necessarily pen this song, but he's behind it. Okay, so Peter Lafarge was the one who actually wrote the song, and John, I think, basically wrote most of the album with Johnny behind him. And man, this one to me is a classic. I have heard this a couple times, but it hadn't really resonated with me until I read into it more. which is why I love this list.
Yeah, just a little more background on Ira. He was part of the Gila River Indian community in Maricopa, Arizona. And so he was a paratrooper in the Marines. And his Indian nickname, or his name in his community, was Chief Falling Cloud. So maybe a little irony or take on that. And he did portray himself in the classic movie with John Wayne, The Sands of Iwo Jima, in 1949.
There's a lot on the bone here. There's a lot to talk. There's a lot going on with this song.
Yeah, and there were several movies that, kind of portrayed, the war and that battle in Iwo Jima. 1961, The Outsider, and 2006, The Flags of Our Fathers, that was produced by Clint Eastwood. So his story has been told a few times, but probably here the most classic is Johnny Cash singing about it.
When I hear about stuff like this, it reminds me of my grandfather. My grandfather served in the war at that time. He fought in all different places in Asia. He was a scout in the army, so he saw and probably took part in a lot of really awful things because they had to in order to survive for war. I can remember asking my grandpa about it for a school project, and he kind of looked at me, gave me a stoic look, and really just said, I really just don't have a whole lot to say about it. And I think that what he suffered through that is like what many men suffered at that time, especially, all areas of war, but in those areas, he suffered horrible tragedies in front of him and really just didn't want to talk about it. So when I see something like this, I hear a song like that, it kind of transcends me to a time when I was talking to my grandpa and just wondering what it would be like to be his age and have to suffer through that.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I've had several family members that fought and died during that time. And my Uncle John, he was on a PT boat in Pearl Harbor. So I've heard many of stories, and, it gave me a little sense of pride and understanding of, the sacrifice that many of our veterans fought and died for our democracy and for freedom across the globe. And so this one hit home a little bit, and it's sad that we have a lot of veterans that get treated badly. In this story here of Ira Hayes, he was celebrated as a war hero because he was kind of part of that. They use that iconic picture as a way, the raising of the flag, as a way to fund a lot of the war campaign. I mean, they used him as a poster child and then ultimately threw him out with the trash. Yep. And so I think that's why this one hits home a little bit.
Absolutely. And I can't think of a better time than now to unveil my new ranking system, because I thought that we're doing such a huge thing right now, Randy, that we have to have something. So I want to implement the scale of 1 to 5 protest fists, raise them in the air. 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. It doesn't mean that we don't like the song. It doesn't mean we don't agree with what they're saying, but I give this one an enthusiastic 4 protest fists in the air.
Well, I'm a big Johnny Cash fan, so I give it more 4.5 to 5. So there you go.
It definitely helps, if you're a fan, like we talked about before. Not all of these are going to be any things that you're a fan of, or even anything that would have been on your radar at any point in your music listening, but it puts you to the awareness of what they're talking about, which is the whole point.
Exactly. Let's keep moving down the list. Number 79, Isley Brothers, Fight the Power.
Power, part 1 and 2. What a saga. And what an amazing, I enjoyed listening to this right off the bat. I like the Isley Brothers anyway. You more know them as that they're so smooth in what they do. But this song was a hard-hitting funk song. I think it even hit the top 10 at the time. But, yeah, this one was awesome.
Well, I can tell you that. So It did hit number 1 on the R&B charts.
Oh, wow.
It did hit number 4 on the Billboard Top 100. And the album itself, The Heat Is On, did hit number 1 on the pop charts.
Talk about leaving an impact on the music world to rise to that level and be that successful.
Well, obviously, it was interpopulated in 1989 by the very own Public Enemy. So
yeah.
The fight to power is still still lived on in future generations. So this was the founding here.
It did. And, basically what they were doing was maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm off base here. From what I understand, they were speaking up they're basically speaking out about, you need to speak up before it's too late, right? You can't just sit back and, we talked about this before, sit on your hands and do nothing. And that's kind of the whole crux of what they're talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they were fighting back against the treatment of, the African American community at the time. This was 1975, still that post-civil rights era where a lot of Black communities were still, even to this day, still treated a little unfairly or a lot unfairly. And of course, this was one of the first songs that the radios actually had to censor a curse word. Because one of the chorus tracks, he slips in the word bullshit.
Which is so tame for now, right?
It is. When the other members called him out on it, which I'm, talking about Ron Isley, he was emotional in doing, when they were producing the track, it just kind of slipped out in a way. He was just emotionally speaking out against, the oppression and the injustice. And so they left it in and went with it.
Which shows the urgency. I mean, that's what a lot of adding curse words to your lyrics. Sometimes I think it's a throwaway. Sometimes I think I even judge it at times, and I know it's probably wrong. At times I judge it as a lack of vocabulary or just I don't even know. Maybe it's shock value, but in this particular case, I think he was using it for urgency. I think that it just came natural and fluid to him because he wanted to express it in such an important way.
Well, again, I think he was just talking the way he talks. I mean, at some point musically, you're expressing yourself and that was natural, in my opinion. And this, like I said, this is some of the first glimpses we've seen of using cuss words in music.
Yeah. Well, I definitely give this one 3 protest fists, not because I dislike it or that I'm indifferent. I really love this song. I just thought that, it pushes the boundaries, but it's not really, I mean, it is and it isn't, right? It pushes it on the level of the language that he used. They're definitely making white America uncomfortable, right? White America, the guys who really need it, gets really cinched up when someone in the Black culture comes out and protests and says something that gets under their skin because maybe they're doing it. Maybe they're the ones that are the problem.
Well, I think this is where our age difference is kind of separates our rating stars.
Yeah,
because I give this more of a 4 or 5 fists because of the long lasting impact. I mean, again, like I said, this song then just set the stage for. This was released in 75. Well, Public Enemy basically picks it up and uses it as their battle cry for the same injustices going on in the late 80s. And so I give it a little higher ranking only because it has a longer impact than just at that time. And it still does. I think it's used all the time still in every genre that has grown from this, and they still use it.
Yeah. Well, my culture is such a desensitized culture where, we could see a murder in front of us, right? And at first, it would play like a movie, which is really sad. I mean, it really is. I think that's probably where where my three fists is compared to what you have, only because I'm so desensitized to all of it. I mean, I've been seeing people fighting injustices, it seems like, at every album.
Yeah, let's face it, you're a metal guy, so
That's right. They're the ultimate ones fighting everybody.
we'll let our listeners decide, but I think that's why I give it a little higher ranking, is just that it had, you know, I did know this song. I like this song. I understood its meaning. I think, again, just living through that time period gives me a little different perspective. So, well, let's just move on. We'll keep going. Listen, we got a lot of songs to get through here today, and let's move on to number 78 on our list. The Coop.
Is it
Mr.
the
Boots
Coup or
Riley.
Coup? Yeah.
Well, the Coop. It's, yeah,
However you want to say.
yeah. And the song is Ride the Fence,
Yeah.
2001.
And how'd you feel about this one? I absolutely love this one, and I've never heard a single thing. I can't believe it from these guys. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, of course. You know, look, they've been around a long time. They were part of the beginnings of, you know, that hip hop funk movement. And so this was a really good song.
Yeah.
I mean, this is in some ways a positive message for let your voice be heard. It calls out all the injustices of capitalism, you know, police brutality, marijuana addiction. I mean, just the disparity in the race class and social classes. I mean, I think they hit a home run with this one.
This is definitely a five fister because I mean they take on everything. I mean they smash it into a beautiful song. I loved it so much.
Yeah, I mean, this is a danceable song. I mean, you know, it's very bass driven, and it's got some critical, hopeful, witty lyrics that makes it a great song.
And as he puts it, it's joyful like a jailbreak. I think that sums it up perfectly.
Well, there is a little background to the album cover of this song at the timing that it came out. Do you know that story?
No, I don't.
So they were releasing this album in 2001 in late September. And so originally the album cover was Boots Riley and former member Pam the Funkness were standing in front of the Twin Towers with them exploding when Boots is tuning the guitar. And so this was going to be released in mid-September. Well, of course, the attack on 9/11 happens, and they take a ton of backlash for this album cover.
Yeah.
And so they ultimately changed the album cover to hand holding a martini glass on fire.
And you know what? I think I do remember hearing about some of the backlash. I just didn't know it was this. I can remember the news talking about, you know, a certain group and having the World Trade Centers behind them and all this, and catching a bunch of flack for that and having to change it. So wow, that really blows my mind that this is what it was.
So in some way, I hate to see that they had to socially adjust this album because of that, but you know, let's face it, there was a lot of emotion during that time, and so maybe they did the right thing. But this one again, I give 5 fists.
Let me ask you this. Why? I mean, it is insensitive in some ways, but when they don't mean it in that way, when they're not putting the trade centers on, talking about being joyful about them being hit and all this, why did it catch such backlash? You know what I mean? Like, I know that it's a sensitivity thing, but I've never understood that side of our weird prude culture.
Well, I think it is just total raw emotion. I mean, you have to understand in the generations of the United States being under attack, there's only been a few times that we've been attacked on our homeland. Just like, look, the attack on Pearl Harbor basically launched us into that war. Right. I mean, we were, we understood what was going on. We stood back, but when it hit us at home, we rise up like a giant bear to fight back. And 9/11 was just like that. I mean, it was hard not to feel that raw emotion during that time. I mean, I remember very clearly. It's like hearing when JFK was shot. I remember being woken up and watched the towers fall on TV, and it was just this sinking pit in my stomach. And I think, again, probably conforming on this one probably was in their best interest, honestly. But it's just kind of a ironic twist, in my opinion, that it just happened that, just circumstances. It's ironic.
Well, it definitely, you bringing that up definitely brought it to light. And it really makes me think about a lot of things. I'd love to do an episode on that day. I mean, I can remember it so clearly, but we don't necessarily need to get into it now. But I will say the impact of being at work that day and listening to the radio and the music stopping, right? And that stuff coming on and thinking that we're under attack everywhere was truly terrifying. It was something that I'll definitely never forget. So yeah, we should cover that sometime. I mean, the Alan Jackson song, there's so many songs about it. That would be a fun trip into, I don't know if fun's the word, but it would be a trip into.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of songs came out of that time period, represented American pride, American power. To me, it's one of the few times, and these are the situations that brings people back together. We see such political divide right now. I mean, we're talking about protests, but 9/11 was a unifying time.
Yeah, it was.
Pearl Harbor was a unifying time. I hate to think that we need to go through something like that again for us to all come back together. But we like to think that music is our common bond together, that we can all set some things aside and bond together with great music.
And moving on to the next one now, I think we could talk about that in many ways. So let's get to number 77 right now. It's Charlie Garcia. It's Dinosaurios, and it is 1983. And this was a cool song. This was a piano ballad, which was just in pure music form, was a beautiful, beautiful song. I mean, I loved listening to it just for that. But then when you dig into what it's about, and we're going to do that right now, you're gonna see why this was even bigger than the composition itself.
Yeah, I actually like this song. It had a great piano melody, and the vocals were really good. And look, this was the underground. It's pretty much what we were just talking about. It's the musical underground using whatever artistic platform they had to fight against a military dictatorship in Argentina and the brutality of that.
Yeah. They're looking back at 7 years of murder, torture, forced disappearances, and they're trying to give you guys a message of hope. And this song, I think, did that. I could definitely see why. Obviously, it didn't resonate with me immediately, other than the composition, because in '83 I was one. I had no idea. But listening now and then reading about it, I can definitely see why this would have an impact.
Yeah, obviously, I didn't have much exposure to this song before, but look, that underground music scene had an impact, because once Argentina became a democracy, these artists were hailed prominently for using music as a way to speak out against, that authoritarian control that they were under during that time. So,
well, how many fists would you give this one?
I'm probably with you in that 3 to 4 range. I'll give it 3.5. It's not a complicated song. I do like the song. It does put out a great message, but again, I think, referring back to my earlier ones, is it doesn't hit me as hard as some of the other topics, but this is a valid song, and it is worthy being in the top 100.
I gave it 3 fists. This is one of those where when you look at a Rolling Stone list, sometimes you see things. It's not that they made a good choice here. They really did. But I'm sure it's very subjective. Someone could look in here and go, I could definitely see other songs in here that probably didn't make the list. And that's okay. I really love what they did here. I still think it's a great list. I think this song deserves to get the look that it's getting. So I think 3/5 is fair, even 2.5, but I'll go with 3 on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the bottom 100, but I think Rolling Stone has done a great job at digging through a lot of songs. And again, this is still a flat out protest song globally that affected a lot of people in Argentina. And fortunately, the outcome was better. And so again, the power of music. That's again, we keep talking about that.
All right, let's move on to number 76 right now. This one is Against Me. It's Transgender Dysphoria Blues. It's from 2014. And there's a lot to unpack here. I don't know how many notes you have, but I definitely have a lot to talk about because I think this one resonates with something that's really going on right now, big time.
Yeah. This is still a hot topic, and I mean, I know you and I love the music to this song. I haven't asked you, but I guarantee that we love that punk rock battle cry music. We kind of grew up on it, so that's where it kind of hits home for us. But this message is by Laura Jane Grace, trans woman, coming out in her music. I mean, using music as her platform to come out as transgender.
Right. And doing it in a way where they're talking about the war within their self, in their own body, which I don't understand because I'm not going through that, but I definitely feel for them because it's hard enough in life to just live. I mean, there's so many things, there's especially the war within your head. I can't even imagine the hell that a transgender person would be going through. I mean, truly, where they're so unsure of themselves, and then everybody's like around them, kind of making them feel a certain way, and the government's trying to kick them down and do all this. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, this is true punk rock battle cry form. I mean, you listen to the lyrics, and you're right. I mean, it's her way of battling the social conscience of what she's going through and how people see her, and using music as her therapy to kind of justify what she's going through in her own mind.
Let's dive into the lyrics for a second here. So brace yourself, kids. Uh-oh. You've got no cunt in your strut. You've got no hips to shake. You know it's obvious, but we can't choose how we're made. What beautiful lyrics, and what a to a haunted soul. And they admit that, they're haunted by many things. It's not that they're not proud of who they are, but they're more, it's that inner fight. And I love it. I love how brutally honest the lyrics are. And I love how they did it in a punk way.
Yeah. I mean, she flat out, I think the next verse in that song is, and it kind of repeats a lot, is just, they call me a faggot. I mean, but it kind of puts this spotlight on how other people see her compared to what she's going through in her own head. And I mean, so you don't have to understand or agree or disagree with this topic to not understand musically, lyrically. The song is genius.
It is genius. And it brings up an important topic like we were talking about. I mean, there's so much going on right now. I will reiterate to those of you out there who are listening, I love you all as listeners, but if you aren't someone who cares about people, if you aren't someone who can't put yourself in their shoes for a moment and show a little compassion and love for your fellow human being, then I don't really want you as a listener. I don't want you to leave, but I mean, the things that are going on right now are tough for everybody.
Well, again, as we're talking, I mean, this is why we're doing this show. This is why we're doing this this top 100. I mean, this is a perfect example of using music as a way to put a spotlight on hot topics that are going on. I mean, and this song was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And kind of honestly at the beginning of just kind of people realizing we have a very, let's be honest, the transgender community in the country is actually a very, very small percent, but we're seeing more and more of it. And so again, this was the beginning of putting a spotlight on that community that is marginalized.
Well, I was fortunate. I mean, I went to Lincoln High, and it's very diverse there. I'm not saying the other high schools aren't, but the diversity's through the roof. And so we had trans kids, we had kids of all different cultures and all different sexualities. And so to me, it was beautiful to be a part of that because it prepared me for, in a small way for what the real world was like. It was nice being able to, some people out there, like I'm sure we have some listeners out there who don't live in the city, who have never experienced a trans person or even someone who is, gay or, lesbian so it's important for songs like this because this gives them an idea of how someone like that feels because they're not a part of any of that. They've never seen it.
Yeah. Again, just talking between mine and your generations. I mean, this is why we have different perspectives. Like me growing up, this stuff was in the closet. I mean, I didn't know a lot of people that were in any of those communities. And so probably my initial reaction to a lot of those people would have been total stereotypes and, that social pressure. But as I kind of got older and met people and realized I had friends in those communities that eventually came out, again, I learned to empathize a little bit of some of the struggles they go through. And so I think ultimately that is the message here. You got to judge everybody on their own character and content, no matter what they look like, want to be. That's part of the freedom in this country. As long as you're not infringing on others' rights, you should be able to be who and what you want to be, no matter what.
I couldn't agree more. I know you and I are very similar on our feelings, which is why we mesh so well together. Yeah. We're basically, we might as well be real kin. We might as well be. I could even be your son. You never know. I'll ask.
Yeah. Can we say maybe older brother?
Yeah, there you go. You don't want me as a son. That's not fair.
That's not true. That's not true. But again, so hey, I give this one a solid 4/5, mostly because I love the punk rock era. I love it used as a powerful way to get your message out. Lyrically, I thought it was great. It definitely gets the message out. So that's kind of where I stand on this one.
Perfect. I gave it 4/5 also. And I'm glad that this was in the list. I loved it. I hope you guys do too. Now I think this is a perfect time, Randy. We're kind of at the midpoint here. I think this is a great time to talk about our sponsors, maybe run the old Elegant Sasquatch ad, and then when we get back, we'll tackle the other half of this list. Welcome to the Late Late Show with your host, Squatch.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We have a controversial guest tonight. He claims to have the world's smelliest beard and doesn't plan to do anything about it in the foreseeable future. Let's bring him on right now. He wants to be brought on by what he goes by on his socials, Toxic Beard 87.
Hey, calm down. Don't hate the smells of it sells.
Hello, my toxic friend. Let me ask you something. With brands like the Elegant Sasquatch Beard Company, why do you choose to smell like a rotten egg on Easter?
It all started when I was 16 years old. My beard was growing like a forest full of pine trees, and it was time for me to find a delicious scent to make Cindy Jo fall in love with me. I found a beard oil in a store, and I thought for sure she was going to be mine. I caked it on, and I was so proud of the way I smelled and how I looked. As soon as I saw Cindy Jo, I went running over to her, but instead of her embracing me and taking me in, she told me to go away and told me I smelled terrible. It was the worst day of my life. It was right then that I vowed that I would never put another product in my beard again. And so here I am, Toxic Beard Guy 87, and I'm not going anywhere.
Well, if I'd gone through that, it'd been tough for me to show my face again, too. But luckily, there's companies like the Elegant Sasquatch Beard Company that have multiple products that'll have girls like Cindy Jo melting in the palm of your hand.
Sasquatch, do you really think that there's a product for me?
Yes, my friend. There are beard balms, beard oils, beard butters, and beard washes that will make your whiskers the talk of the town. You'll be smelling like a dozen roses, and you'll be looking the best you've ever looked.
I would give anything to get Cindy Jo to talk to me just once again. Where can I get this amazing product?
Head on over to elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and find yourself getting lost in the amount of items that they have to offer, including beard boxes as well, with a full line of some of their favorite products.
There's only one thing left to do. I'm going to go over to Etsy right now, and I'm going to buy as much product as I can, and I'm going to find Cindy Jo, and I'm going to win her over. Thanks again, Squatch.
You heard it here, folks. We changed his mind. Next on the show, we'll have a doll with an eating disorder. Then we'll have squirrels riding skateboards. Till then, head on over to Etsy right now. Tell them that the Scratch the Vinyl podcast sent you.
All right, let's kick into the local roundup. There are so many massive things going on. I can't wait to get into it, so let's do it right now. First off, there's a new radio station. That's right, everybody. 97.3 FM, The Source, is out there now. They're playing hip-hop, they're playing urban, they're having DJs on there. They're even going to have a rock show with our good buddy Caterpillar, Rod Soriano. It's going to be awesome. I think his show's going to be called The Blackbird Experience, so check that out. Maybe we'll be doing some shows together. Who knows? Maybe a benefit. We'll see how it goes out there. All right, let's talk about music. There's a lot of music happenings out there. Let's get to Gray's Keg. Friday night, they've got the man, the myth himself. They've got Josh Hoyer there for an 8 p.m. show, $5 show. This is a steal, everybody, to go see Josh Hoyer. Go check him out. Saturday night, they've got Smutty Bingo. That's right, Smutty Bingo's back. You can win naughty items, naughty, fun for adults, male and female prizes. They're partnered with Romantics, so I can only imagine the cool stuff that they have. That's an 8 p.m. start to that, and it'll probably go until, who knows, till the cows come home, till they kick them out. But it's probably going to be an awesome time. I heard last time it was great, so not probably, it is going to be an awesome time. All right, then let's go over to Cappy's this time. Cappy's has got a lot of great things coming up, so I think it's worth mentioning. Friday night, they've got the Happy Endings Band from Omaha at 8 p.m. Saturday night, they've got the Rockin' Fossils with Raw Nerve. I mean, that's a pretty good lineup. I definitely want to start mentioning Cappy's from here on out because they have some killer stuff coming on. I think Dad Rock is going to be there here pretty soon, too, so stay tuned for that. Let's go over to the Zoo Bar right now. The Zoo Bar, Friday night, they've got two different shows. Of course, they've got the early show with the Scallywags at 5 p.m. That's a $10 show. Then later on, they've got Valley of Creatures, or is it Valley Creatures? Beyond Bananas, that's also a $10 show, and that's at 9 p.m. Saturday, they've got two rockin' shows as well. They've got the Church of Cash, 5 p.m., $15 show. Then later on, they've got Keith Harkin from Celtic Thunder. That's an awesome pickup by them. That is going to be a 9 p.m. show, and it's going to be $25 at the door. Man, that's going to be amazing. Really, all the shows that I've listed here, and then some. That's just scratching the surface a little bit on everything going on here in town. Also, I want to give a big shout out to John Cruz from KZUM, from the Metal Manifesto. I just picked up my shirt from him from their benefit last week. I unfortunately didn't get to make it, but I have heard nothing but amazing things about that. So thank you for the shirt, John. I can't wait to get him on here in studio and talk about what I love, which is metal. So before we get out of the local roundup here, Randy, do you have anything that you want to add to this?
Yeah, of course, I got one. We've got Head Change on Friday, the February 28th, here at Matson's Bowling and Billiards for Rockin' Bowl. So if you're looking for a fun time and a free show, come down and join us and party along with Head Change at Matson's.
Awesome. I know they've been there in the past and they've rocked the house, right? So this is like their second or third time back.
Yeah, back by popular demand. Is this your anniversary day?
It is, man. Yeah, 14 years. We've been together 16 in total.
Congratulations. See, it's always quite the accomplishment.
I think so. I can't believe I duped someone into being with me this long.
Well, she posted about it. I think she said it perfectly.
Yeah,
You may not be perfect, but you're the perfect one for her.
exactly. Well, a guy like me,
That's the best you can hope for, man.
it's the best you can hope for.
Oh, serious. You have to love somebody that just, they love you no matter just being who you are.
Exactly. I love how she worded it. You know, that I'm not perfect. I have flaws, but you know, I'm perfect for her. Yeah, like you said, that's
Yeah. I love that. And I love your wife. She's awesome.
she is. Let's get back into it. Let's move on to our list now. I hope you guys are playing along at home. You've got your scorecards in front of you. You're writing it down. You're listening to the song. So we're on to number 75 right now. And 75 is, it's a doozy, everybody. It's Artists United against, I have no idea how to pronounce this. Is it Apartheid?
No, it's apartheid.
Apartheid, okay. And it's Sun City. Not to make myself sound like a moron. I absolutely toiled with how do I say it, and I blew it. So
Well, see, this is our generational understanding. I mean, apartheid is the oppression of black people in South Africa.
okay.
And so kind of as a spin-off to We Are the World, to be honest with you. This was a collaboration with many great artists, written and produced by the E Street Band's very own guitarist, Steven Van Zandt. E Street Band of Bruce Springsteen, and basically put a lot of artists together to help shed light on this massive oppression of black people in South Africa.
I hope when I'm searching through, like thumbing through the records at record stores, I hope I come across this one of these because I have a We Are the World vinyl somewhere in my collection in here, but I would love to get a hold of this. They loved this kind of stuff back then, 1985, and what a star-studded cast when you start to read through all of the musicians that were a part of this. I mean, this was a huge thing, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the song, it combines a little rock, hip hop, punk, jazz. I mean, this was a masterpiece musically. And here, some of the people that were on this song: Bono from U2, obviously Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Lou Reed, hip hop artists like Run DMC, Melly Mel, Curtis Blow, and R&B royalty, Eddie Kendricks, Bobby Womack, Nona Hendrix. I mean, this was a star-studded cast.
Yeah, this was huge. I could definitely see why it was in that comparison to the vein of We Are the World, because it absolutely is.
And of course, I remember this song. This was a very popular song. This actually got a lot of radio play.
That's what I was just going to ask you if it was on the radio quite a bit. That's fantastic. I wish there was more of this type of stuff that happened now, where we could really. And I know there's a lot of things that people join causes, but to bring that many great people together, get them in the studio to cut all this stuff for one cause is amazing.
And if you look at the timing of it, you have Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA was a huge, huge album at this time. And so Steven Van Zandt coming out with this collaboration, this one hit pop American culture right here. I mean, even if we probably weren't very understanding of what or cared that much about the oppression in South Africa, this one put a big spotlight.
As it should. I gave this one 4 fists. It probably could be a 5 fister, honestly, being that it's so star-studded and such a great cause, and it had such a massive impact. It's just one of those generational things, like you said, where I wasn't there to see it at the time, so I don't know what type of impact it had, but you do.
Yep. And this, like I said, this is a solid 4 to 5 fists. I agree with you.
All right, well, let's move on to number 74. This was an interesting choice, I thought at first, because when you listen to the song, it's the number 74 is the OJ's Ship Ahoy, 1973. Now, when you listen to it, it has just that, I don't know, just that beautiful OJ's sound to it, right? And if you didn't know what it was about, and if you were just kind of a casual listener, you might even miss the message until you start to listen to what they're saying and really see what's behind it. So let's dive into it a little bit.
Well, obviously, so the Ships Ahoy is the title song to this album, and so it, if you know all the songs of this album, they had a lot of hits off this album. But the title track here, Ships Ahoy, absolutely kind of puts a big spotlight on it's the history of basically slavery in America. And, their harmonies, classic OJ sound. But this song, is a little slower ballad. And you listen in the background, it has cracking whips. And this song really hit home hard and had a distinct message to it.
Well, and that's one of those things like the whip crack. If you're just a casual listener, just listening to the song, you might even miss it. You know what I mean? Or just think it's a part of it. But then when you dive into it, you're like, man, that's such a thoughtful way of putting into the message what you want, adding those whip cracks and talking about slavery and coming over on the boats and everything. This one, I absolutely loved it. This was a solid 5-fister for me.
Well, obviously, look, it hit R&B's hip hop #1 album.
Yeah.
So this album had a lot of traction. This song had some traction. I don't remember the song being played that much on the radio. I had heard the song before, but I don't remember getting that much play. Most of their other hits were more popular off this album. But again, back in those days, me and you talk about it all the time. You would get an album and you'd actually listen to all the songs.
Which is the best part, everybody. Stop this foolishness. Even if you're listening on streaming, go to that discography, pick any album from these artists and just listen to it from top to bottom. And you're going to be glad that you did. So what if you take a chance and you didn't like it, or you think you wasted 3 or 4 minutes? I don't think it's a waste at all. I think that it's a journey. So stop fooling yourself. You got to listen to it all.
Well, look, I grew up with a lot of the Motown sound. And so groups like the OJs with that solid harmony and vocal, it's really not hard to like this song.
I love it because it taught me. I know a lot of people would think that I'm a rock and metal guy, but way before that, I'm true by soul. I'm an R&B guy. I've been singing R&B style songs forever. I've been into R&B. I've been into this type of music my whole life. I grew up on the Motown sound because my mom listened to it. And that is really where the root of my heart is. So I know a lot of people like to put me in a box and, oh, he listens to Slipknot and Pantera and all this stuff. But boy, oh boy, are you wrong about me. This is where my heart really is with stuff like this.
Yeah, look, like I said, this is a great album, top to bottom, and there's a lot of great songs on this album. There were songs like "The Air I Breathe," "Don't Call Me Brother," "Backstabber." Of course, probably was the most played hit off this album. Mm-hmm. So, this was a full album that really cut into that culture and history of the African American experience for the last 400 years.
Well, and the bands like these really changed the game for everybody. They really did kind of pave the way for what music would become. They're such pioneers in what they did. This was a home run. Bravo to you. Rolling Stone for putting this one in there. This is one of those, I'm telling you, just like before, you would definitely, if you weren't paying attention, you would almost wouldn't even understand the message because you get lost in the musicianship.
Yeah, again, this is 1973. It's still the emotions of civil rights. This is when a lot of the civil rights music was at its highest peak.
They kind of hide it in there, it's almost like they're so good. It's almost like a subliminal message. It's almost like if you play it backwards and really slow, the devil's going to come in and tell you all sorts of things. But the devil isn't there at all. They're giving you a good message and they're saying it loud and proud. This one's a no-brainer. This one's awesome. But let's move on to the next one, Randy. Number 73 is another banger, and it's amazing to get this particular artist on here. We have Helen Reddy, I Am Woman. This is a classic.
Now, this absolutely is a classic. This is one I remember very well in the early 70s. This is before the hashtag Me Too era, but this is women power right here. When women were looking for equal rights, the early 70s stood for a lot of things for women's empowerment, and this was a battle cry song for women.
Yeah. Can you believe that we lived in a time where to me, it seems crazy, especially in nowadays, because women are so important, but why weren't they always important? It blows me away that they were kicked down and they're having to fight for their rights to be treated as an equal. That's outrageous.
Yeah, look, that early 70s, I mean, women still couldn't open a bank account without a husband or father co-signing. They couldn't get a house. They couldn't even get birth control. I mean, these are the kind of things that were still 1950-ish. Again, this was a big anthem song for feminism and fighting for equal rights. And like I said, this song climbed to number one for a reason. It took a little time, but once it got a lot of airplay, the message got out.
Well, just the term "I am woman" has now been a staple with so many different things, right? I mean, from comedy sketches to movies. I mean, it really did have a massive impact. And what's wild is she was channeling her anger from years of navigating through a misogynistic, chauvinistic entertainment industry of like what you were talking about. Kind of like when you go to when you still go to buy a car, right? And you're with your wife and they won't even address her, but they'll only look at you. It's kind of that whole thing that still lives today. So I think this song then is as important, is important now because I think this is still backhandedly going on for sure.
Well, again, this is another example of a song that transcends forward to even an artist like Katy Perry kind of used this as an anthem to write her hit song in 2013, Roar. And so, again, another song that has a long-lasting impact in the music industry, on future women artists. So this is a strong five-fister because it got strong play. It did reach number one, and it had a super strong message, and it's long-lasting.
I gave it 4 fists. I don't really know why. I feel awkward saying fister with this type of thing. I don't mean it in a perverted way. We're just talking about protest fists in the air. This is the scale we're using. So I'd say 4 to 5 fists for sure. This one had a massive impact. It's a 5-fister. So moving on to number 72 now, the women empowerment is strong here. Okay. This is 2021. This isn't that long ago. And it's the Linda Lindas. I absolutely love this band. And the song is Racist, Sexist Boy. This is an anthem. This is a classic. And I'll tell you why. First off, when digging into it, it's basically Amelia de la Garza. She actually saw in real life while the COVID pandemic was going on, she saw the racism against anti-Asians type stuff going on. And I think we all kind of witnessed that. We witnessed a change in the United States. We wanted someone to hate. and all of a sudden we switched it over where people were like attacking Asian Americans, attacking people, anybody who's Asian on social media, making them feel like they're the reason for it. And the Linda Lindas in their brutal way, their punk grunge like way, come in and just put out a brutally honest song.
Yeah, you have to admit it's pretty sad that, look, we had internment camps for Asian Americans after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So we've seen this before. And probably after, 50 years, 75 years, we should think that some of these stereotypes, are gone. And here you go. Something global pandemic happens, and here these stereotypes come right back in our face. And it's sad that people have to view other people in that lens. And you're right. Here's a strong song by the Linda Lindas. I had actually never heard this song. So, during the COVID times, I was going back listening to all my favorite old classics like REM, The End of the World as We Know It.
Well, then I just I love a good brutal song, and the message here was awesome. I just love their delivery. I love everything about this band. I love the delivery from the singer in almost a purposeful, like shrill, just cut your ears voice. I mean, there's nothing about this that I don't like.
Yeah, this is totally your genre, and I can see why you like this song.
I think that they did a great job. I mean, poser, blockhead, riffraff, jerkface is part of what they shout in this. And what a wonderful middle finger in the air to all the racists out there who are acting a fool. And you guys, if you're listening, stop this foolishness. Listen to songs like these and understand. Go back and read those lyrics, and then ask yourself, am I this? Am I doing this? And change. That's the whole point of why we're doing these protest songs. We want change, and we want music because music helps with everything. And so why not listen to it and make the change? Well, last but not least, we get to number 71. This one is another banger. This one is Killer Mike, and it's Reagan from 2012. Randy, when you listen to this, how did you feel about this? Because you can remember the Reagan administration and all that went so well.
Wow, there's a lot to this song. And of course, if you follow Killer Mike at all, like this is a home run. Like he lyrically goes straight after the hypocrisy of the Reagan era, the war on drugs, selling out guns and the Iran Contra stuff. The biggest message I got out of this, because if you follow Killer Mike at all, he kind of is anti both parties in our political system. And he points out the obvious, that it doesn't matter which party's in power. They both trade everything for money and oil. They sacrifice our people to war for the mighty dollar and taking over sovereign countries. Man, this has all of that in this song.
It does. It even dives into prison privatization and why, all of this that affects America. The thing about the two parties is I never understand, because we're so split, right? Especially right now, where we're at a point where we're split again, is I'm in the middle always, because I feel like Killer Mike feels. I'm not happy with either of them. I mean, I'm not happy with one side or the other. I'm sick of the same things he's tired of, and I'm not living the same. I didn't grow up in Atlanta. I didn't grow up in the rough culture like that, but I can definitely see with my own eyes what's going on. And I wish people would take that mindset of, oh, my side is right, your side's wrong. How about we fix it all in general? I think that's what Killer Mike has to say here.
Well, I mean, look at this. This song is 2012. Yeah. And let me tell you what. So this is an early shout out Like this song is holding more true to today than ever before. I mean, it's like you said, like he calls out Obama on this song.
Right.
Again, it's this, you know, he calls him just another talking head at the top, selling us out and blaming, basically blaming our culture and turning it around on our politicians that pretty much put us in this situation. This is a killer song.
It is. Killer Mike does it again. I mean, Killer Mike is great in general, but I think this is Killer Mike at his peak. This is where Killer Mike is best, and he delivers it in such a great way. It's a banger of a song. They're talking about, you know, selling our souls for oil and soil and all of this, and taking countries for our own gain. Yeah, he's going after everybody, and then he ends with the fact that he's glad Reagan died. I mean, that's a massive protest. That's saying something.
I know I think I have a hard time expressing this song. I think that's why I was stuttering a little bit there. Like there's so much to this song, and it's hitting very hardcore today. We have this rise in populism right now in our country, and like this song is holding true, and basically is calling out. It doesn't matter what administration, who's in control. We're at the mercy. Basically, as a community, we're at the mercy to these greedy people.
They're getting richer, and the country is suffering. I mean, they're not living badly on either side. That's the thing. That's why. I mean, that's why this is so important, because we need to keep reminding ourselves, instead of having them censor us and kick us down and tell us that we can't talk about this or it's not happening. If you don't think it's happening, then you're lying to yourself. You really...
Absolutely. You know, look, this song talks about, you know, they use military planes to drop cocaine in it, you know, in our country, you know, and then basically use that, you know, as a way to finance their bad dealings and basically create, you know, drug wars with the gangs, yet put out this message of anti-drugs and say no to drugs. And I mean, it's so hypocritical, and Killer Mike just shines a giant spotlight on it all.
Doesn't he ever? And I mean, talking about the war on drugs, I mean, that is one of the biggest shams in our history. That is to me, I know that this is going to sound, it's going to sound like an odd comparison, but to me, it's as wild as like the Trail of Tears, as passing off pox-filled blankets to Native Americans. I think that it's something so sinister what they did and tried to hide behind this, you know, this war that they're doing good for everybody, when really they weren't doing good for anybody. They were just knocking the African American community down more and more.
You know, I want to give a little shout back to an earlier song in this 10 songs that we're reviewing today from the Isley Brothers. Killer Mike uses the word bullshit. I mean, it's highlighted just like a little callback to the Isley Brothers, you know, in the early 70s, being one of the first curse words to be censored on the radio. Well, Killer Mike screams bullshit right in the middle of this song.
I'll bet Killer Mike has said a few other things throughout his 10 years.
Yeah, not the only curse word he gets censored on this song, but I just thought, as we did this 10 of songs, of protest songs, a little callback, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm giving it 5 fists. 5 fists for Killer Mike. If you haven't listened to Killer Mike, go back and listen to his entire discography, because you're not going to be disappointed. He's solid all around.
Yep. We're going to wrap this top 10 up with another solid 5 fists for me too on this song. And I encourage everybody to go check out Killer Mike and check out some of his other music. It's really good.
Well, we made it through another 10, Randy. That does it for this week. We're definitely going to continue this trend. I know people are loving this. Hopefully, like we said, we're going to get some guests to give us other. Maybe we'll have fan favorite Max Antoine back on the show. Maybe we'll have some other surprise guests. But you guys got to stay tuned and keep following along.
You know, when Brooke's out of the studio, we like to get a third take, so it isn't just me and you patting each other on the back,
giving each other 5 enthusiastic fists.
But you know, look, I think we showed again there. We have, both of us have a little different perspective on some songs, mostly because we grew up in different generations. But I always appreciate your takes because you always see it through a different lens than I do. And again, that's the response I'm getting from people that are coming up to me talking about, you know, what we're doing here with Scratch the Vinyl and doing these protest songs. Again, had a ton of feedback from our Super Bowl halftime takes. And that was a hot topic. And so, again, I'm going to point out that since then, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar is blowing up even bigger now. Like, it is getting a ton of play. And so controversy does put a spotlight on current stuff. And as we've learned with all these protest songs, without it, maybe some of these topics don't get any attention at all. So
I'd like to think that Kendrick's success after the Super Bowl has a lot to do with that special that we did, Randy.
Well, I know it doesn't, but look, I think the message was good. And I think, and not just that, if it's made people go back and look at to see who he is and what type of music he puts out, they're starting to realize that he puts out a positive message. So even if you don't like hip hop, you don't like that type of genre, it's still not hard to appreciate the message that he's trying to put out. Yeah, let's wrap this up. Again, thanks to all the listeners for tuning in for another episode of our 10-part series on protest songs. And we'll get back into the research books and get ready for the next episode.
We'll catch you on the flip side, everybody. Listen next week for another awesome episode of
Scratch the Vinyl.